What is good, everybody? Welcome to the OG Gold Standard Podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera alongside Levin Black. Levin, it's Thursday. We are gearing up for another 49ers game. Hopefully, regular season consecutive victory number 14.
Good. I'm just kidding with you. I had to make fun of you. For everybody else that doesn't know, because only I know at this point, Rob started his whole 49ers and 5 shtick when he started to introduce us, the original. And he's going to have to cut that out of our recording and start with the actual one. So, of course I had to poke at him for that and not let it pass and inform everybody that Rob is not perfect.
I don't think there was any possibility of people being confused by that.
Are you sure you are a perfect 3 for 3 on your predictions?
I mean, not to pat ourselves in the back, but we nailed the bets last week. 6 for 6.
Oh, now it's we. I listened to your
I gave you credit with Michelle last week.
I was perfect. I was 3 for 3. I even predicted who got the interception. Me. Oh, by the way, did you know Levin was also 3 for 3?
You know why? Because I only had one of your bets saved in the topic bars on the right side of the screen, so I couldn't remember the rest of them. So, but I said you
all unders. That was the part that I thought might blow our mind. I hit because you guys don't like unders.
That's true. And you know what? You nailed it. We should just do that every week. We'd never lose a bet. I think that's pretty clear, and we'd be millionaires, and that would be that. But instead, we're here on a Thursday.
I was definitely sweating early. Like that first drive, I was like, my God, Daniel Jones is going to hit yards by halftime. And then like at halftime, I'm thinking there's 34 points. I'm screwed here.
Yeah, it was dicey. That's why unders are a lot more nerve-wracking. But anyway, enough about the last week's game. We get the Cardinals coming up, Levin, and the closer we get to the Cardinals game, the more agita I get in the pit of my stomach. I'll explain why in a minute. But before we do
that word,
AGITA, I'm going agita. Everybody knows. You know agita. Come on. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. Rate, review, follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I always say if you leave a review, we'll read it on the show. This one I really was blown away by. This is a 5 stars. It says, great show. It's from Blind Jimmy. He says, I've been a longtime 49ers fan, and since losing my sight, I get all of my news and entertainment through audio podcasts and other audio sources. The Gold Standard Network has been my go-to for all my 49ers news. I love starting my day with a cup of coffee and some 49ers in 5. I love all the shows you guys do and the great back and forth and thoughtful analytics. Keep up the great work and go Niners. Blind Jimmy. That's amazing, Jimmy. Like that blows me away that you choose us to get some of your 49ers coverage. And I'm sorry, obviously, about what happened with your site, but I'm glad that we could keep you informed, I should say. That's amazing.
I mean, I got 3 things. 1, yes, that's awesome. 2, it sucks you're blind, but at least that means you don't have to look at Rob on these YouTube videos.
Uh-huh.
And 3, when you said his name was Blind Jimmy, I totally thought it was like an insult to Jimmy Garoppolo, meaning he's blind, he's bad, and then you led off with since I lost my sight, and I was like, ooh.
I hope you felt like a jerk then.
I did. Like,
good.
I'm pretty sure anybody watching on YouTube sees my reaction because I definitely reacted because I felt bad.
Yeah.
That was my thought, and that was the answer. So, that's an awesome review, and there's always a bright side to life. So bright side to life is you don't know what Rob looks like, and you don't have to suffer through that. Rob's wife has suffered through it for 15 years now.
That's right. It's my 15-year wedding anniversary tonight as we record this Wednesday night, and I'm sitting here.
Yeah, what are you doing? Talking to me.
Talking with you. Obviously, we're not going to get to 16, but that's a whole other discussion. No, my wife's at a dance class right now, so we're good. But anyway, let's talk about the Cardinals game. Enough dilly-dallying. I've been diving into the Cardinals. I've been studying them. I've been listening to other people who have studied them, Levin. And the more I do, the more I get the sense of last week's victory over the Cowboys was not just Dallas is taking it easy. Dallas is asleep at the switch. There were schematic things that the Cardinals took advantage of where they were able to just punch holes in that Dallas defense. And, the Cardinals, they got a coaching staff now. They have a real coach who knows how to use the pieces on their roster. This is not going to be the walk in the park that we thought it was going to be when the schedule first came out.
Like, I hear you. I do believe that Gannon is a very good X's and O's guy. Incredible goober of a person. And I think that is a perfect description of his attitude. He's just a little bit of an oddball, a little bit socially awkward from the videos we've seen, at least. There's multiple. But he definitely knows his stuff in terms of that. But there's a couple things that we'll get into more about why I'm still very optimistic, why I don't think Arizona is actually all that talented. And the first thing I want to lead off is, of all the teams that he is going to know how to beat, it's the Cowboys, because he's coming from the Eagles. So he's
Right.
been a coordinator game planning against the Cowboys twice a year. So I think that's a big part of it, is he knew exactly what to do to the Cowboys to beat them. And I also think that there's a little bit of a psychological standpoint to that game that I don't think should be understated. I think the defense and that team in general was kind of in a downer mood because they just lost Diggs to a injury. And I think that does affect you, because they were riding high, sky high. Nothing had gone wrong for them all season. It had been absolute picture perfect start for them. As good as everybody thinks the Niners have started, the Cowboys' first two games were way above what the Niners had done in terms of being perfect starts. And then that injury happened that week, and I think it sunk their psychological standpoint. I think those things did weigh in. I think there's other parts to it, but I don't think those things should be understated.
I think your point about Gannon knowing the Cowboys better than maybe some other teams is a good one. But at the same time, shouldn't the Cowboys have known Gannon? Because that works both ways, them being in the same division. And yet, Gannon seemed
to a certain degree, but Gannon's the one that changed teams. So he's going to have changes to his scheme. He's going to have, obviously, the other side of the ball that he's not involved with is going to be completely different. And the personnel is different. So he's going to have to change to the players. And nobody knows Dobbs at this point. Nobody knows how to attack him. Dobbs the bubble's going to burst, and it's probably going to burst this week, honestly. I think he's talented. I think he probably has a future, but he is not somebody that's going to suddenly become like their franchise quarterback or anything like that.
I think you can make an argument that Josh Dobbs is doing exactly what Brock Purdy is doing with the 49ers. Drop back, take care of the football, get the ball out of your hands quickly, make the proper read, and hit the open guy. And he's a lot more mobile than Brock. Josh Dobbs can run a little bit. He broke off.
He wasn't a wide receiver until a couple of years ago.
I don't know.
I think he transitioned from a different position. He was an offensive player prior to this that was not a quarterback. But because he started with
Pittsburgh as a quarterback. No, he's been a quarterback. Pittsburgh 2 years, Tennessee, now Arizona.
No, yeah, he started in Tennessee, which is my brother's.
Started in Pittsburgh.
He was drafted. Wasn't he drafted? Oh, he played college ball at Tennessee. Oh, my bad. I do not think he's doing that. And I would say if he's doing anything, it'd be more Brett Favre, because Purdy was only one team. It's not that a team looked at him and said, hey, he's not good, we can trade him. But it's the case of, the Atlanta Falcons with Favre saying, hey, we don't need Favre, we'll trade him. Right? That's different.
I'm just saying, if I'm the Cardinals, I think you could say the same thing about Brock. The ball was going to burst. And I'd watch the JT O'Sullivan breakdown of Josh Dobbs. And to me, the stuff he was saying about Josh Dobbs, throwing with some anticipation, pretty good footwork, hitting the open guy, I was like, damn, that's the same thing we say about Brock. I'm not telling you he's going to be great, but I'm just telling you, again, I remember going up against the Cardinals with some crap quarterbacks. And I don't think this is it. That's why the more we get closer to this game, the more I get agitated, the more that knot in my stomach just twists a little bit. And it's like, hey, this isn't going to be the walk in the park. Now, fortunately, they just beat the Cowboys, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about the Niners, looking past them at all, because they just had a wake-up call, a little announcement to the league. So that's good. But no, this is not going to be, we're not playing the little sisters of the poor here, as they say.
No, but do you know how many teams Dobbs have been on? It was Pittsburgh, then I think Jaguars, Cleveland's in there. He was with the Lions at one point. So many teams have passed on him. He's not going to turn into a star. He's not going to turn into their franchise quarterback. And it's not like he's been awe-inspiring. The Cardinals are 27th in passing. They only have 500 passing yards through 3 games. So let's not pretend like he's doing what Brock was doing, putting up multiple touchdowns every single game. Like,
No, he's not doing
I get your point that yes, the bubble could still burst on Brock, but I think we saw a little bit different of a story. Dobbs had opportunities. If I'm not mistaken, he had a start. He was with the Titans in 2022, and he had a start there, I believe. I know he played for them.
He had 2 starts with the Titans in 2022. Yeah. I'm just saying, I think he's doing a lot of the same things Brock is doing. Maybe he doesn't have the same stats. That's not debatable. But he's getting the ball out quick. He's protecting the ball, which I think that's going to be a big deal. If the Niners can force a couple turnovers, that'll change everything. But I think, forgetting about Dobbs, the number one thing the 49ers have to do is tackle James Conner. Yeah. Their whole offense is going through James Conner right now. They ran for 222 against the Cowboys. Yeah. They want to run the ball. They don't want Josh Dobbs to have to throw. They don't want Josh Dobbs to have to win the game. It's all about stopping James Conner.
First off, thank God for a mute button, because I just sneezed twice. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, you saw me sneeze, and you now know what that looks like. But yes, the Cardinals are a very good rushing team, at least so far. They are, I think, 6th in rushing, and they're averaging the 2nd most yards per rush. The only team beating them, take a wild guess after the week we just had in the NFL.
The Dolphins?
Yeah, that's the only team that has a higher yards per rush. And that's because the Dolphins just demolished a team like we've never seen before, and that kind of inflated their rushing stats, because prior to this week, it wasn't that great. The Cardinals are a very sound blocking team to be able to rush like that. To me, it's one of those things like, okay, you're good at rushing the ball. Cool. What defense are you going against? What defensive front are you facing? Okay. I'm pretty confident the 49ers defensive front can limit their ability to run the ball. And so their biggest strength goes away.
But wouldn't you have said the same thing about the Cowboys? You're not going to be able to run on this Cowboys defense.
I would not have. The Cowboys are not that level of it. They are a pass rushing team and a turnover defense. They have always given up a whole bunch of yards. Diggs was a gambler of a cornerback. He was an all or nothing cornerback. That defense was never dominant when it came to giving up yards. They gave up yards. The thing that they would then come do is they would get a big sack and things like that. But in terms of actual like physicality, like I feel like the Niners are the defense that bullies you, and that is much better at stopping the run. Whereas the Cowboys are the flashy defense where they're going to get sacks and they're going to get turnovers. But they're not going to just sit there and bully you in the trenches. So I don't think that the Cowboys are a great defense at stopping the run.
So a couple of interesting nuggets that Steph Sanchez tweeted out yesterday. Opponents are attempting to run the football against the 49ers 23% of the time. That's the lowest in the league. So the 49ers rush defense is not being challenged right now, either because the Niners are getting up by multiple scores and teams abandon it, or because they just don't think they're going to be able to do it. But whatever the case is, right now, teams are not trying to run on the 49ers. Arizona, on the other hand, has run the ball on almost 50% of their plays. They've run it 49% of the time. That's 5th most in the league. So when we tell you that the offense goes through James Conner and that the Arizona wants to run, that's the proof. They are pounding the rock right now. And so that's going to be the test for the Niners defensive line, who have played great so far this year. Stop the run, make Josh Dobbs have to throw.
Yeah, the Niners only being run on 23% of the time is 100% schedule-based. You had the Steelers, who got down big quickly in that game, and then who did they face? 2 terrible running teams, because the Giants lost Barkley before that game, and I'm drawing a blank now. The Rams, they were going through that whole Cam Akers. Kyron Williams had a decent game in that, but he had quite a few receptions in the game. In terms of actual running the ball, the Rams are not a good rushing offense, and they haven't been pretty much ever since they lost an MVP caliber running back. They have not been a consistent running team for years now. So I think a lot of that has to do with the opponents they faced. I would expect the Cardinals are definitely going to come out and play it safe, is what I'm guessing. They're going to come out. They're not going to, I would be shocked if they come out and go, we're going to catch them off guard. We're going to pass deep. You know what I mean? I don't see that happening.
On the flip side, also from Steph Sanchez, shout out Steph, Arizona's defense is 26th in rushing yards allowed per game, including Tony Pollard. Last week, the Cowboys, he ran for 122 on them, and they have allowed a running back to score a receiving touchdown so far this year in all 3 games. Facing Christian McCaffrey, that's good news for the 49ers because we know he can run, and we know he's going to get some passes in the air. So it's really going to be all about the running game in this game.
Yeah, and the being 26th in rushing yards allowed isn't just because the other team like pounded the rock or anything like that. They've given up 4.6 yards per carry this season, which was, I think, 6th worst or 7th worst in the league so far this year. Like, they not only have given up a lot of rushing yards, but they've given up a good rate. Like, the Niners are going to be able to run on them. And that was one of the points I was going to be making, is that the Niners' strengths are going to, one, take away what the Cardinals have been able to do offensively. And then on the flip side of it, the Niners' strengths are going to be able to punish the Cardinals in what they've done weekly on defense. So to me, I'm not overly worried. Like, yes, the Cardinals are better than I thought they were going to be, but they're still not a good team. And so I'm not worried about this game because the Niners are going to be able to do exactly what they want. They're going to come out and they're going to run the ball, and the Cardinals aren't going to be able to stop them.
Think about how the season has gone for the Cardinals also, right? When we talk about their rush defense. That Giants game, the Giants were not running the ball to come back in that game. They were passing because they were down 20-0 at halftime. So they were down 28-7 in the third quarter. So it's not like the Giants were pounding the rock. So the fact that the Cardinals have given up that many yards, and one of the 3 games, there basically was no rushing attack from the Giants, says that there could be some vulnerabilities there. And I don't know about you, but I would love it. Give me one of those 35-40 rushing attempt games where the Niners just take a team's soul. I love watching those kind of games. I'm all for that.
Do you know what we're going to be missing this game that I think has been one of the highlights of recent matchups? There will be no Budda Baker versus George Kittle.
Yeah, because Budda's on IR.
Which, again, goes to the 49ers' favor. Kittle could have another big game. But those have been exciting matchups because those two, I think they were almost mirror images of each other. You know what I mean? In terms of their style, their personalities, in how they play on the field. They're both very high energy guys. They're both like very physical type of guys who fly around. And we're not going to get that matchup of, I mean, Budda and George going head to head was the highlight of their recent years, in my opinion.
If you're watching on the stream, you just saw the touchdown where George Kittle stiff arms Budda Baker twice and runs it into the end zone for a touchdown. That was always enjoyable. And that was after Kittle had just gotten banged up, too. That was the impressive thing.
And we got a shout out there to Dante Pettis sighting in that video.
Man, there's a throwback. I loved seeing Kittle get so involved in the game last week. I think he had 7 catches for 90 yards. We thought it was going to be a big Kittle game, and it ended up being a big Kittle game. More of that, please, especially because we don't know the status of Debo Samuel, Levin. He did not practice on Wednesday with ribs and now a knee thing, Kyle Shanahan said. And I don't know about you, but again, I know I said this last week with Ayuk. If Debo's not 100%, don't play him. Rest him up. Give me Debo as close to 100% as possible for the Cowboys matchup. This is the luxury that you have if you're the 49ers. Because you have so many skill players, you don't have to rush Debo back onto the field. You still have Ayuk, you still have Kittle, you still have McCaffrey. That should be enough. So I rest Debo again. Welcome back, Brandon Ayuk, and let's go to work.
We'll see. I'll be surprised if he doesn't play. I don't think it's as serious as it seems because he didn't practice. I mean, Debo after said, "Oh, I don't have a rib injury." He said in the post game that it was just the wind getting knocked out of him.
Yeah, but
it's clearly a rib injury. Like when he went down, he grabbed his rib on that play that he kind of was a little banged up. But I don't think it's that serious. I think he's going to play it. They're probably just playing it safe with him. I don't think this is a big deal. I'm not counting out Debo in this game. And by the way, like, despite everything I just said, don't take the Cardinals for granted. You're 3-5 versus the Cardinals in the last 8 games.
Yeah, they've struggled because historically the Cardinals have been able to stop the 49ers rushing attack, and they had to depend on the quarterback, and we all know how scary that was. But I don't rush Debo back. I know after the game he said he was okay, but sometimes your adrenaline is still pumping. Next day you wake up, you feel a little different. We'll see. But as long as Ayuk is there, I feel comfortable. Like you should have plenty on the offensive side of the ball. You still have also Elijah Mitchell. Like you should be able to do it. You shouldn't need Debo Samuel to beat the Cardinals.
You shouldn't need him, but like you don't take things for granted. Yeah, if he's banged up and you get up in the game, don't play him in the second half. Don't risk him getting hit in the ribs and being out against the Cowboys the next week. But like at the same time, you don't take that's an easy opponent. We'll win. We can not play him. No, play him. It's just if you don't truly need him, don't play him a lot. I'm not of the opinion if somebody can play, they dress, they play, you can limit their exposure to certain things. Like Ayuk. He could have played on Thursday. I understand why he didn't, but you could have limited his exposure of getting hit in the shoulder and stuff by like not running run plays in his direction. So he's not truly having to like engage in run blocking for long periods of time and things like that. Like there's ways to limit. Now the ribs, that's a little harder to limit because especially with somebody like Debo, like you're going to get exposed. You're going to get hit in them with the way that he plays.
I don't know. I don't like having to play a guy if you got to protect him if he needs protection out on the field, then just sit him. Especially like if it was the Cowboys game, I hear you. This is the Cardinals game. I know the Cardinals are not as bad as we thought, but.
And George Kittle would never play because he's always banged up.
Oh, that's a whole other.
Same with Debo.
If you listen to today's 49ers in 5, you know what I'm about to say next. The Cardinals defensively are like the bizarro Giants. So the Giants blitzed on 85% of plays. The Cardinals don't blitz hardly ever, and they still get pressure. That's kind of like what the 49ers do. They don't blitz a ton, but they're still able to get pressure, and they have more guys back in coverage. That's what Arizona has done so far this year. My question to you is, do you think the Cardinals are going to be able to get pressure with their front four and not having to blitz?
I think it doesn't matter because the Niners are going to run like 40, 50 times in this game. I don't see the Niners passing in this game unless they need to. This is going to be a game script where they're able to run and they're going to run because they easily can. Like the fact that the Cardinals aren't blitzing, that would probably explain a good bit of why they've struggled against the run because they're dropping back in coverage. And every single team that has not stacked the box against the Niners for like 6 years now has gotten the ball rammed down their throats by Kyle Shanahan. So good luck.
And we know that's what Kyle would like to do above anything. And we'll see. When the Cardinals do blitz, by the way, they have a 60% pressure rating, which is second in the NFL. So they may not blitz a lot, but when they do, it is effective. Vish pointed this out on Monday. Because of all the blitzing the Giants did, we didn't really get to see a ton of play action from the 49ers. It was basically just regular drop back passing game. And
we haven't seen play action this season.
Brock, to his credit, played well. Kyle has seemingly dialed back the play action a little bit. He dialed it back last year, about halfway through the year. They were below league average in terms of how often they ran play action, and we didn't get a ton of it last week. I wonder if maybe we see a little bit more of that return, especially if the 49ers are having so much success running the ball. They may not even have to do that many straight drop back passes. They may just pound the rock with McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. And then when they do pass, it may be almost all play action.
I think it speaks to Purdy's strengths and how much Kyle trusts him. He doesn't need the gimmick of play action to trick the defense and get somebody open. Somebody will be open due to the scheme and the level of skill players the 49ers have, and giving Purdy the time to sit and scan the defense, he's going to find them. Like that's what that speaks to me. They haven't done play action almost at all this season. It's not just last week. They have not been doing play action almost at all with Purdy this year. And to me, that's because he's so good at reading and getting through his progressions and finding the correct read and making the throw that they don't need to.
I don't look at play action so much as a gimmick. I think it can be a crutch for some quarterbacks.
It's a very common gimmick to the point that it's almost standard. It is a gimmick. The whole point of it is I'm going to trick the defense and make the linebackers cheat up and the safeties cheat up so that there becomes a window of opportunity in the pass game.
How's that a gimmick?
It's a trick.
All of football is about deception. We're singling out play action passes. I mean, entire route trees are set up to get one guy open, to trick the defense into following one guy or one area of the field so that another area of the field is open. What are we talking about here?
So you don't think like all the pre-snap motion that the 49ers always lead the league in is not a gimmick? Like it's a whole bunch of misdirection.
But gimmick implies that the only way to play like real football is to line up and to just.
No, that doesn't imply that. That's what you might infer, and that's your own biases going that way. That's not what I mean by it. A gimmick is something that's like completely pointless. It's, hey, look over here, and then coming around with the hook from the other direction because you made them look at the little birdie to the right so that you can hit them with the hook on the left.
Yeah, but when you say gimmick, you imply that it's somehow like cheap, like a cop out, almost like cheating. Like, oh, it's a gimmick. It's not real.
You sound like somebody on Twitter right now.
You have to trick the other team. I just think I don't like that. I think that's a little weird, to be honest with you. Football's all about deception. It's always been about deception. Now all of a sudden play action is gimmicky.
I think play action is a gimmick. You're deliberately trying to trick the defense and get them to bite on something that's not real.
Is a draw a gimmick?
To a certain degree, yeah.
Is a screen a gimmick?
No.
I mean, so I don't know. Where you draw the line is, I guess it's different for every person. Anyway. If the Niners can win the game, though, think about it. They'd have 3 wins in the NFC, 2 wins in the NFC West. They would be set up beautifully in terms of playoffs and tiebreakers and number 1 seed, all that stuff. This could be a fantastic, fantastic start for the 49ers if they could get the win.
You should be rooting for them to lose this week.
Why?
Because if they're 4-0 and they lose to the Cowboys, I know who I'm blaming.
Right, me for What if they win? Then do I have to go every week? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Tell your wife that. If you really don't want to make it to 16, go ahead and do that.
Right. So if I go and they lose, then it's my fault. If I go and they win, but then they lose the next week because I'm not there, then it's still my fault.
Well, no, because you weren't there in the first weeks. Like
that's true.
If what is happening changes the one time you show up, then it's your fault. That's just the way it works. You're the superstitious person, right?
I am very superstitious. I wore my Monday.
38 freaking years old and you haven't attended a football game yet.
Well, look, in 2 weeks, you'll never be able to say that again.
38 looking like 22, according to Grant Cohn.
Grant was
barf. I was wanting to puke listening to that on the way home.
Nice little homestand for the Niners. Giants, Cardinals, Cowboys, and they're on the road for 2, Cleveland and Minnesota, and then back home against Cincinnati. This is going to be a nice little stress test for the Niners. Arizona's looking better than we thought. Dallas, despite the hiccup last week, is still looking good. Cleveland's defense looks like an absolute wrecking crew, especially Myles Garrett. My God. Did you see what the Titans were doing and how he messed with the Titans last week?
Yeah, I did.
So if you didn't see it, this was awesome. He figured out that the Titans were having 2 tight ends follow him based on where he was lining up on the defense.
It was actually one of his coaches pointed it out.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
So they're having these 2 tight ends follow him before the snap. So he just starts alternating sides of the formation before the snap because the Titans can't snap the ball because they've got 2 guys following Myles Garrett around. So they had to take a timeout to stop it. That is number 1, how you know you're living rent-free in somebody's head. And number 2, great job by the Cleveland coaching staff, apparently, to point that out.
Well, I mean, Tennessee is a train wreck this year. Derrick Henry not doing well. The offensive line is garbage. Ryan Tannehill finally turned into the pumpkin that we've all thought he was for the last couple of years. Nobody's been good anywhere on the offense of that team, and the defense has not been very good either. Like Mike Vrabel might not last the season because he's been there a long time. So for you to regress this much, you got to have it fall on the head coach at some point. I do think Vrabel's a good head coach. I think his failures, like the things that he's weak on, is specifically what Tennessee sucks at. And Cleveland was able to exploit that. Vrabel's not the best of X's and O's guy. He doesn't know offense all that well. And they continually miss on offense for that team. But that's too much Tennessee. It's just, I know that team extremely well because my brother. But Cleveland is, like you said, that's not an easy game like we thought it was going to be. That defense might be better than the 49ers defense. It's one of the 2 or 3 defenses in the argument.
Let's get back to the team that you actually care about, the 49ers. Levin dives deep into the Tennessee problems. How does the whole Steve Wilks lawsuit against the Cardinals factor into any of this? And the reason I bring that up is Mike McDaniel just dropped 70 on the Broncos. Back in the day, Mike McDaniel was a ball boy for the Denver Broncos, and he wanted a job to be interviewed on the coaching staff, and they wouldn't give him an interview. And if you don't think that contributed to McDaniel dropping 70 on Denver, I think you're nuts. Because if you listen to Mike McDaniel in that Play Callers podcast series, he talks about being taken advantage of by Kyle Shanahan. He talks about how other coaches freak out and he doesn't get emotional. He talks about the arrogance of other coaches thinking that their play calls can make or break a game. He thinks he's got it all figured out, and he's a very high opinion of himself. And look, right now it looks like he's right to have that opinion. But I think that was a factor in that game. Wilks obviously has ill will towards the Cardinals because, according to him, he was put in a terrible position, and it sounds like he was, and shame on the Cardinals if they did that. Do you think that, maybe he goes into this game with a little bit of an axe to grind?
Absolutely. And I think that I'm sure that has been communicated to the players and they're well aware. But Wilks isn't the one that's going to be on the field. I would love to see some kind of celebration, like a sack celebration or a turnover celebration that pokes fun at it somehow.
A little like burner phone?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Do some kind of like where you're trying to call and the other guy's like, no, XX, you can't call me, and still trying to call. You know what I mean? That would be hilarious.
If you don't know what we're talking about, when Steve Wilks was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, the GM, Steve Keim, got suspended because I believe he got a DWI. And instead of just following the terms of the suspension, he got a burner phone, allegedly, according to Wilks, and was like trying to communicate with the team. And the owner was like, here, use this burner phone. And Steve Wilks was like, hey, I don't want to be breaking any rules here. I'm the interim head coach. And it was a very toxic situation. Steve Wilks is suing the Cardinals. And so that would be fascinating if it happened. Who do you think
he's suing? If I'm not mistaken, his reason for suing them is because he thinks they fired him over not going along with it, like putting up resistance to it, because they fired him after only one season. So I think that was his big grind. It was like they wanted to break all these rules, and he stood up and was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then they said, okay, leave, basically.
The lawsuit against the Cardinals said there's evidence that Keim was involved during the so-called suspension and that he's alleging racial discrimination. I think it's a factor. Who do you think is most likely to do the little cell phone? You think it's Warner? You think it's Bosa has his own, so he may not?
Bosa's not going to do it. Bosa, that's not him. It would be Warner or Greenlaw. I would say those
Greenlaw
would be the top two. I would say those are the top two. I could see something like, it doesn't even have to be necessarily a sack and turnover. I could see Greenlaw getting like a huge tackle on that sideline, and just looking at them and doing something like this, just to bring it up, throw it in there a little bit. Like I could see Greenlaw doing it. As far as defensive line, I don't think any defensive lineman, like Armstead is the quiet type. Bosa is clearly the quiet type, and he has his shrug.
Yeah.
Hargraves hasn't been around. I don't see him doing that. And I don't see Drake Jackson doing it either. Like I don't think it would be a defensive lineman, put it that way.
I could see Mooney Ward doing it.
If he gets an interception, but
right, if he makes it.
The linebacking crew for the 49ers is where all of the energy is for that defense.
Absolutely. One thing I didn't ask you about when we were talking about Gannon, I apologize.
How dare you?
I know. He was obviously with the Eagles last year. He's prepared for this 49ers bunch, obviously going into the NFC Championship game. we were talking about how well he knew Dallas. Do you think that from his perspective, at least, he feels like he's got a handle on the 49ers because of the work that he put in last year?
To a certain degree, but like I said, he has a whole new personnel. So in terms of how he can attack, it's not necessarily going to be the same, right? Because the players are different. So he doesn't have the same strengths and weaknesses that he had with the crew that he had in Philly to be able to do that. So I do think that changes. But I will say he's one of the few coaches that's getting to coach against the Brock Purdy 49ers for the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of insight there because that does change things.
Although, I mean, the fact that they didn't get to see any of the 49ers passing plays because they never really ran him. So maybe in a weird way, that game
don't say it.
Is less useful to the 49ers than it would be if Brock Purdy could have actually thrown a ball. That's not an unfair thing to say.
I thought you were going to say, so in a weird way, it's almost like one good thing that came out of that. And like, no, there's nothing good that came out of having no quarterback to play. I know.
You didn't let me
go in there and I was scared. Yeah.
How are you going to, you got to let me finish before you try and whack.
I thought you were going there. I didn't say you did.
Boy, can I talk? I mean, really? Can I finish a thought?
You've been married 15 years and you're relegated to your basement. What do you think?
Hey, let me just tell you, I spent 15 minutes yesterday hunting down a cricket down here. It's like the
worst.
I have to get rid of it because they make so much damn noise. I don't want it messing up the recordings.
You think it makes so much noise? My work space is a blast-proof building made of metal. Do you know how much a freaking cricket echoes in a metal building? When there is one in the building, it is absolutely miserable. And yes, we have a whole bunch of they're extremely sturdy benches that adjust, or not benches, desks. They can adjust their height and all that. So you can't just move them because they're there's no ability to move them. They're fastened in so that they can take all its weight and stuff. It's very difficult to find a cricket in my workplace because you can't move the furniture out of your way. And there has been multiple shifts where you're just miserable because this thing is somewhere and you can't find it.
It was a giant pain. But anyway, people don't want to hear about my.
I'm sure some of them do. Come on now.
It's just a pain.
It's like you said, there's nothing bad to say about the Niners right now. So they've already heard it all. So we can go off script on this episode. You're welcome, America.
I just want people to know the effort that we put in here on the Gold Standard Network to bring you premium product. That's all I'm saying.
We?
All right, mostly me. Do you think that Christian McCaffrey continues his streak of, 12 straight games with a touchdown if you include the playoffs?
Is it 12? I thought he hit 13 last week, but I could be wrong. I could be thinking of the streak.
Yeah.
Yeah. McCaffrey's going to have 100+ yards rushing and a touchdown, at least one. This will be a big Christian McCaffrey game.
Every game is a big Christian McCaffrey game for the 49ers.
I'm not going to be shocked if he wins MVP.
Have you seen the Dolphins and Tua? There's no way.
Have you seen the Dolphins and Tua last year? Guess what? Have you seen that? Did you see that tweet today? Tua stats, statistically, he is literally same number of yards, same number of touchdowns, same number of interceptions. I think he has one more pass attempt or something and one more completion or something like this year. His stats are identical, almost 100% to what he had last year. And he wasn't an MVP consideration last year.
Yes, because he got hurt. Yeah, not because he stopped being effective.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm telling you.
Can't play the Broncos every week.
No, that's true. That's why I got it. I pushed back on Grant yesterday because he said he wasn't sure the Niners were the best team in the league. I'm like, hey, if those are the two teams we're comparing, I don't know how it's not the 49ers. What is the knock on the 49ers? If you're going to say they're not the best team in the league, their defense is phenomenal. Their offense puts up 30 points a game. Where do you ding them to not have them?
Hey, don't leave out special teams. Wisnowski downs a punt every single time inside the 20, and Moody is 9 for 9, which I believe leads the league.
That's fair.
They literally the worst thing that they've done this year is they gave up a couple returns to the 35 or 40 yard line in week 1.
Yeah.
That's about the most you can criticize one unit.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
There will be criticism at some point.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. The 70 points is freaking amazing. Like that is like a Madden score. That's like literally you need to up the skill level on Madden. Like clearly you've mastered one.
Did you see that tweet where I talked to multiple coaches around the NFL and they thought that it was ridiculous and McDaniel was running up?
And that was a fake tweet, apparently.
He didn't freaking run up nothing.
Well, no, he could have set the all-time scoring record, and he took a knee instead of kicking a
field goal.
He pulled
his quarterback. He pulled his star wide receiver, and he was just running the ball.
No, that was. I mean, Tua only threw for like 309 yards in the game.
Yeah, he was pulled in the fourth quarter. Like I don't think he played at all in the fourth.
So it wasn't like Tua had this amazing statistical day. I mean, just utter dominant. And Sean Payton, I have no love lost for Sean Payton. You could talk all the crap you want about Nathaniel Hackett last year, Sean Payton. He didn't give up 70 points, okay? He didn't get absolutely boat raced.
Did you see what Sean Payton said? That he had a conversation with his fellow coaches to do some soul searching and told them to be honest with themselves and figure out what they did wrong in terms of game planning and how they let the team down. It's like, that's a whole lot of you suck and no reflection of, hey, I'm the head coach and I signed off on those game plans being installed.
Boy, it's just a real struggle to see Russ. It's just a real shame to see Russ struggle, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Oh, man.
It's one of the weirdest second chapters because it's not necessarily his fault. He's actually statistically not been that bad this year, but that team's been a train wreck. There's been no riding in Denver country.
The horse has wandered off somewhere.
They're cotton ridden is what's happened.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. I just saw a tweet from Nick Wagner who says the Cardinals are tied for first in the NFL in yards before contact per rush at almost 4 yards per attempt, 3.68. That's pretty damn impressive. The Niners are second in the NFL in yards after contact at 2.36. So that is crazy. The Cardinals basically block it up really, really well and gain the yards before the runner is hit. The Niners don't really give a crap if you're there because you can't tackle them.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like I said, yes, the Cardinals have been great in their run game. I'm much more confident that the Niners can dominate that line of scrimmage and the linebackers will be able to fill the holes and shut that run game down. And I have no confidence in Dobbs being able to pick apart this defense.
Hopefully it comes down to that. Because if it comes down to that, the Cardinals ain't winning. I'll just say that. 49ers game plan remains the same, right? Run the ball, protect the football. In this 13-game win streak, they don't have a single game with more than one turnover. That has never been done in the history of the NFL before. You got to keep that streak going. You are the more talented team. And when you are the more talented team, you don't lose by getting beat. You lose by giving games away. And as long as the 49ers don't do that, they should be okay. But I don't think it's a walk in the park. And I'm tempted to take the Cardinals in the points, even though I think the 49ers will win. 14, it's up to 14 now. It's a lot of points.
I don't care what the matchup is. If it's 14 points, I'm going to be tempted to take the team that's given 14 points. Let's be honest. Like that's pretty rare. And it's the NFL any given Sunday. It's not college. Like college, I don't bet on college football for a reason because a team can be favored by 40 points and win by 60.
Well, like Miami over Denver. I took Miami -6. I feel like I should win more. You should win like 3 times your bet when you're that correct.
Can you imagine the people out there that bet the under of that game? Because there's got to be people out there.
God, RIP for those people. But by the way, Seahawks Giants on Monday night. We're now going to be rooting for the Giants.
Barf.
They're
whooping. What I got to say to that game. That's going to be a boring game.
Yeah, it is.
The most exciting part of that game is watching DK Metcalf be pissy because he's always that way.
He does do that. But that would be a nice little perk of the week. If the Niners get the win and Seattle loses, that's like the perfect week from a 49ers perspective.
Yeah, that's been the case for like 15 years now. The perfect week is Seattle losing and the Niners winning.
But you know what I mean. I'm saying
I
that
know.
because the Seahawks are the biggest threat to San
Well, they
Francisco.
would have a 2-game lead in the division at that point.
Yes. They don't play Seattle for the first time until week 12, and then they play them in week 14. I hate that. I hate that. Spread the games out.
Well, yeah, I don't like the games being back-to-back, but I do like when they're late in the season.
Yes, because it makes them more impactful, and that's fine. But I don't like at Seattle, at Philly, home against Seattle. I hate that stretch for the Niners this year.
Yeah, it's just wonderful to have the Philly game sandwiched there, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's going to be that is going to be a game, put it that way. That is a game I am very tempted to try to. Well, I was going to say I'm very tempted to head over to Philly for, but then I remembered that I just saw on Twitter somebody posted from this past week what it's like attending a game as an away fan in Philadelphia, and they were they had literally a 6-year-old with them, and they're getting cussed out and flipped off and all kinds of stuff just walking to the stadium. Philly fans are garbage.
Yeah, 49er fans.
I was young. I used to think they were great because they were so passionate and they were so willing to be like, hey, the team is playing like crap. We're going to let them know it. You know what I mean? Their own team. And as I got older and I see it for what it really is, they're just assholes.
They have an earned reputation, I'll say that. But 49er fans are also earning a reputation. How many times have we seen videos of fights in the stands at 49ers games between 49er fans? It's not even fans for the opponent.
And shame on you if you're one of the people on Twitter and stuff that are tweeting it, thinking it's awesome. Because I saw it and people were thinking, oh, this, laughing about it and stuff. I was like, why do people think these fights are so great? This is an embarrassment. And I had people responding shut up, this is cool or whatever, It's like, no, you got grown adults beating the crap out of people. And guess what? People have died at Niner games over it. So no, it's not cool.
It's not just a shoving match. That's one thing. This is serious stuff. So if we could, knock that stuff off.
More Blue Moon, less whiskey in the stadium.
Yeah. I was in Philly last weekend and, I was like, you know what? Levin lives in Pennsylvania. It'd be really great to have a beer with Levin, just actually see him and hang out. Let me just really quick Google his address. Maybe we could, I'm only in Philly for a short time, but maybe we could just grab a beer.
6 hours, yeah.
Yeah, you're 5 or 6 hours away. Pennsylvania is huge. I don't think people realize it's friggin' big, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a different animal than Connecticut, where you can be in 6 different states in an hour in any direction or something like that. It's a different animal. I grew up in Indiana, and I used to think Indiana was a decent-sized state because it takes about 4.5 hours to drive the length of Indiana because it's a very vertical state.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done that multiple times. And then I lived in North Dakota for 10 years. And you think Pennsylvania is big? North Dakota is actually a little bit bigger.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go. Last question. Are you going to join us on Sunday for the Instant Reaction podcast?
I'm going to join you.
What about the listeners? You're not going to us. I say us. We're a family here. It's us.
I can't control if they're there or not.
Well, I know. You certainly haven't. You've been doing your best to scare them off so far.
Anyway. This is what you get. I warned you before we went on. It's been a rough week for me. Of little sleep, a bunch of headaches at work. I'm in a mood today. Put it that way.
Today, he says. Well, I don't know what your explanation is.
Here's a reference for us 38-year-olds here. I'm thinking of a Limp Bizkit song. Do you know which one?
Yeah.
That's the mood I'm in.
It's just one of those days.
Yeah. Break stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the type of mood I'm in.
Google it, kids. Anyway, please join us after the game for the Instant Reaction Show live on the Gold Standard YouTube channel. It's one of the most fun shows that we do. Right when the game ends, we hop in, celebrate, commiserate, whatever the case may be. It's been a really fun show for the past 13 regular season games, but we hope you join us no matter what happens. We take your questions, your comments. It is a ton of fun. Levin, I hope you're...
Guess what? It's the last opportunity for a couple weeks to have the instant reaction with us because you won't be there for the next one.
Right. I won't be here for the next one because I'll be in San Francisco at the Cowboys game. So I got to see if I can get somebody to join you. Although, what's my selling point? Come do a show with Levin. Good luck to me.
Okay, hold on here. One, you won't be in San Francisco.
Santa Clara. Sorry.
Dude, it's not the Cowboys game. It's the Niners game first, the Cowboys.
I know. So I got to find you a co-host, but yeah.
Like whatever. It's going to be what it's going to be. I haven't. Like I guess I did the show with Michelle, but that wasn't live, was it? No, we did do it live. Like I used to host all the time back in college, but we're talking my old ass. That's 15 years ago. When you were getting married, I was fresh off hosting stuff.
Different, yeah, a little different.
I'm not the well-oiled machine that you are at this point.
Hey, you know what? That almost sounded like a compliment. Anyway, join us.
But I was very careful there.
Thank you, Levin. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.